righty. So good afternoon, everybody. Hear me? All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the module
Oh no, we're losing you.
on disasters as it relates to financial recovery. You can't hear me?
Now I can.
Can
Yeah,
you hear
it's
me
better.
now, Juanita?
Yes.
Okay, let's see what happens. So let's get started. The first section is preparing financially for disasters. All right. It says, are you ready? That's our sign. So the key takeaway section one is it's really about saving time, money, and stress when a disaster strikes by making financial
We keep losing you,
to
Ivory.
disaster, you're going to see this. Really, I'm not doing anything, so I don't know what's causing
Okay,
it.
there you go.
Maybe
You're better now.
I do know I'm better now.
Yes.
Okay. Um, yeah, it's something unfortunately that I can't control is what I guess I really wanted to say. Okay, let's go to the next slide. How disasters can affect finances. So first of all, you need to think about your cost that you'll have to deal with in terms of meeting your immediate needs, your cost of repairing and replacing items. And by that, we're talking about, if a window breaks in your home, or you have to secure it, something like that. Ongoing cost of items that you need for your family, identity theft. A lot of times during disasters, we learn that people will take advantage of victims of disasters and they will end up having their identity stolen or compromised. Scams, lots of scams out there post a disaster. You want to be careful about them. Access to financial resources. A lot of times, after there is a presidentially declared major disaster, there are resources available for families from the federal government. And you guys probably have heard the organization FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So they'll have programs a lot of times. And then the last thing is penalties of missing payments. And we'll talk a bit about that as well. Everybody understands when we're in, again, a presidentially declared major disaster that the president has decided is a major disaster. A lot of times there are options for people who are having to pay rent and mortgage payments. All right, next slide. So what you want to do is get ready. So you can visit ready.gov for general preparations. You want to prepare in advance for disasters. So it won't hurt you after you get off this, after we end this session, for you to just go out to ready, ready.gov, and just see what they recommend for you. This will help you to be better prepared financially. You want to have insurance. Now, some of you might say, well, I'm renting a place and why do I need insurance? You want the insurance on the items you have in your apartment or your home that you're renting. So don't sleep on that because you probably have some nice furniture, I'm sure, clothes and things of that nature, pictures or decorative things. You want that insurance so that you can recoup those items, even your linen and things like that. You also want to prepare by setting money aside in an emergency savings fund. We'll talk a bit about that. Some of us have already had discussions around the importance of having savings in general. You want to keep some cash in a safe place. There are pretty inexpensive things at like a Walmart or some store, maybe like a dollar store, where you can have a little safe. And then if you're like me, I sometimes, when we have an emergency, for instance, during the pandemic, I brought home a little cash and stuck it under our mattress just in case the banking system got impacted like it did when we had a crisis. You also want to sign up for direct deposit with your banking institution. That way, if you can't get out to the bank, at least you have your phone or you have your internet service where you can move money around, okay? Or your paycheck is still going into your account and covering your expenses. So I want you to consider online or mobile banking if you're not there yet, and keep financial documents and information in a safe place. And what I'm going to encourage you to do here is always have 2 or 3 documents. So that's to say, if you lose one or if it gets damaged, you have another safe place where you can go and grab that. Okay. Or you might want to even leave it with a family member, an extra document, in case something happens to you or you get sick or something. So get the insurance you need. I talked a bit about that. Insurance is a critical support after disasters. So you need it beforehand. You can do that this weekend if you don't have insurance on your personal property in your residence. Shop around for the best deals. Okay, you can go online to companies like bankrate.com or other companies that will list for you the rating of different insurance companies. And those ratings will help you. They get ratings like an A plus, a B, like we would in school. So it's not really difficult for you to figure out which ones might be better for you. Review your policies. If you're already covered, take a chance, take some time today to go out and get your documents, walk through them. A lot of times there'll be things in there you don't understand. So this is a good time for you to reach out to your insurance company because you're not upset and you're not frustrated. Things are normal right now. And that one clause that just didn't really make sense to you, you might want to just reach out and have a conversation so you have an understanding so you're not in that situation during a disaster, not understanding. And again, keep records of all of your personal property. So you want to take pictures and I've done this and need to update it for myself. You want to take pictures of the things you have in your home. If your grandmother gave you something like a watch that your grandfather had and it's valuable, you want to have a picture of it so you can show that you had this antique item. But even for just like our sofa, our love seat, our Christmas tree, your furniture, your linen closet, take pictures so that you can account for all the things. Because when you're in a disaster or you're in a fire or anything, what happens is we're upset and we're frantic. So we're not thinking clearly. But if you have those pictures, and everybody has a phone now, just have those pictures online. It doesn't hurt. Even your car. You want to take a picture of your car? A lot of times the disasters are such that people lose their entire vehicle. So you want to take pictures of those. If you have a garage and you, like me, you have things in there. I've got a couple of Christmas trees. I got a lot of Christmas tree decorations. I may have a lot of food supplies, and I have like right now I have a lot of like paper towels and stuff in the garage. Take pictures, okay? So you can account for your items. And then you want to keep those records, like I said, in more than one place. So have it in one place that you normally keep it, but if you lose it, maybe have your sister or something have it on hand because she may live somewhere else. And if there's a disaster, you can't get to the document, but you got somebody that can send it to you. What types of insurance could help you be better prepared? So we'll talk a little bit about that. So here they are: automobile insurance, disability insurance. What if, as a result of that disaster in your home, physically you're hurt and you can't work? So you want to have a good understanding of what the automobile, your car insurance company will do for you if something happens to your car in a disaster. You want to know about disability. You can talk to your folks at work about that. A lot of us have our disability policies tied to our work situation. Life insurance, if something happens, unfortunately, to you or a loved one. Let's say in my home, it's my husband and me, but let's say we had a major disaster and unfortunately he died in that disaster, and I am dependent on his income because I don't work. Then I would need to have life insurance to cover me if something happened to him. So think about life insurance. You may be a single mom with 5 children. You don't really need insurance on the children, but you need insurance on yourself in case something happens and your children need money. So consider that. Renter's insurance, I talked about. This is one a lot of people don't take out. It doesn't even cost you that much today. It's been a long time since I've had it, but I'm going to say you probably wouldn't be paying more than $15. Miss Juanita might know better in your particular area, but you want to at least look at it and see if it's affordable.
It's about that. You're right.
Oh,
About $10 to $15.
good, good. Okay, good. I'm glad. Okay, because I've always thought it's worthwhile for the value you get, right? That renter's insurance. And then obviously if you own a home, you want to have homeowners insurance. That's a must. It's not an option, it's a must. You really need that because we have so much in our homes these days that are of value. So when you have some time, you can focus on this exercise. You can use the table to review different types of insurance and figure out what you need. And so that's why it's in the deck. Miss Juanita is going to provide you with the deck at the end of the session. And what I will do, Miss Juanita, is also for this particular section, because it's so important, I will send over the participants guide so that the students will have that to go along with it when they are going through the exercises.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. So set money aside in an emergency savings fund. We've had many, many talks about why it's necessary to have an emergency savings fund, but I don't think that Miss Juanita or I have to say anything more to you guys about this, because look at where we are today. Who knew that we would be in a pandemic? So this says it all. We're in this pandemic. We have no idea how long we're going to be in this pandemic, and everything is topsy-turvy. Some of us aren't working. Some of us are working. Some of us were working full-time. Now we're working part-time. So this, if there ever was a time that you should try to put together a little emergency savings, this is the time. So let's talk about how we want to build our emergency savings fund. You've got to set a realistic goal, okay? It's going to take some time and commitment. It ain't going to be easy, but it's a cycle. It's still worth doing, and it's an important step to help you improve not just your situation if you're in an emergency, but it's an important step for your financial health and stability. because what it does is once you get that emergency savings set aside, you can then use the rest of your money or a portion of the rest of your money on establishing some things that will earn you some interest and or help you get to retirement. But that emergency savings must be there first because we don't want you grabbing that credit card when you're in an emergency, because now you're taking a situation where you are upset, you're discouraged, and you've got this card that you can just swipe. So you want to have some money on hand, cash on hand. And sometimes you don't even know if you'll be able to get the money from a creditor. We had a situation like that during 9/11, where a number of the ATM systems weren't working. So you need that cash on hand. Okay. So I guess they heard me before I said it. Keep some cash in a safe place. You know, cash may be the only option right after a disaster. I mentioned 9/11 was one where there was an issue. Keep some cash safe where you can get to it quickly. As I said earlier, excuse me, there are many stores, like I said, a Walmart or a dollar store or a Kmart, that have little small safes that you can put and store money in, where you can access it in your home quickly. You may want to keep it in a large, oh, you may want to have a large emergency kit. That's a good one. You can't go wrong with that. In a lot of our stores, like the Lowe's and Home Depot, and I don't know which ones you all have, but I figure you have at least those two, you can find emergency kits there. And then keep in mind that you don't want to keep more cash than necessary. So, what I would recommend that you do is look at your monthly budget. And if your monthly budget for all of the bills that you pay is maybe 700 or 800 bucks, then you want to have that at least 800 there and maybe pad it with a little more. Okay. Sign up for direct deposit. We talked about that already. You know, you want to sign up so your paycheck, pension, or any other benefits will go directly into your account at a financial institution. In the pandemic, can you imagine with the length of time? I don't know about you all, but here on the East Coast, it was taking, and it still takes sometimes, the United States Postal Service to get our letters to us timely. So if you have a direct deposit account, you don't have to worry about that. So all my paychecks are going directly into our account, and I can go online and pay bills. But I can tell you one thing, I happened to sell a home because my mom passed, and I sold her home back in December on the 16th. And it took over 30 days from North Carolina to DC to Maryland for me to get the check that was issued as a result of selling her home. And it was because we're in a pandemic and the United States Postal Service is still moving slowly in some cases. So if you don't have direct deposit, I encourage you to go out and get that sooner than later so that any of your financial benefits are going into an account for you. Signing up for a direct deposit helps you have access to important income during a disaster. And if you don't already have an account, you want to consider getting one. And I would say work closely with Miss Juanita, and she will assist you, I'm sure. So let's stop right here before we get into consider arranging for online or mobile banking Any questions about anything that I've said, any concerns, any things that I've said that you think just aren't going to work for you, or any information you want to share before we move on? Okay, so everybody's good. All right. So there's going to be a little quiz in the end. So let's take some notes if you want to. So I want you to consider arranging for online or mobile banking. That particular financial institution that you choose, um, when you consider it, they might be temporarily unavailable. Uh, Online and mobile banking, you can pay your bills. I talked about that. You can deposit checks. You can conduct other transactions through an online browser or phone app, and you can communicate with your financial institution. So that's why they're telling you to consider arranging for online or mobile banking, because you never know what's going to be available or unavailable, or at least temporarily unavailable. Keep your financial documents and information in a safe place. Always want those hard copies. Today, though, you can store them online. Almost everyone has a computer. You can, you can scan it and have it online. So you'll always have it with you, but you want to have one at home or in a waterproof bag, or in a fire resistance box, um, in your go bag or your bug out bag or your BOB. These are the bags that you have if you got to leave that house immediately. You have something prepared, the things that you need as you're exiting. You want to be able to grab it, so it has to be ready. Similar to for the ladies, when you got pregnant, you probably had to have a bag prepared so you could grab when you went to the hospital. This is one of what they're talking about. Having, if there's an emergency, do you have a bag you can just grab and go with? In a safe deposit box at a financial institution, you can do this, but remember, you're going to have to pay for it. So I always encourage people, you can save yourself the money and have your own little private safe deposit box at home, because if you even go to the United States Postal Service, you're going to have to pay for it. If you go to a bank, you're going to have to pay for it, and it's a monthly fee, I believe. Scan and John C. Is that John C? Yes. Did you have a question?
I have a quick question. What if you're on renter's insurance with your roommate or your boyfriend? Do you recommend I get a separate plan just for myself and keep the plan that I have with him? Because I want to be secure.
Yeah, I would say talk to the insurance company, because for instance, we right before we got married, my husband and I, we knew we were getting married, and we both had a joint insurance policy, and it didn't. If he had an accident or I had an accident, it didn't matter. We were on the policy together. But just confirm, you should be okay, but just confirm. And the way you can confirm it, first and foremost, is get the policy, look at it, read it, and make sure both of your names are on there as policy holders. Okay. And then you should be safe. But it's okay to pick up the phone and ask them as well. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. And so then I think I talked to you guys a little bit earlier about, scanning and emailing the documents to yourself so you always have them. And as far as electronic records, just make sure that you password protect information and secure any data that you have offsite stored somewhere, because again, there are a lot of scams when there are disasters, unfortunately. So keep your records updated as well. So emergency financial first aid kit, wonderful things to have. Everyone should have a FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency kit. So this is what they're promoting. You can find it online. And again, I feel pretty confident your Lowe's or your Home Depot, one of those stores like that, will have them. Um, FEMA.gov, the website, includes checklists and forms to help you prepare an emergency financial first aid kit. So if they don't have the kit, there are there's a website you can go to and you'll see a list of all the things that should be in the kit. And so you want to get those because there'll be things like if you get cut or hurt somewhere physically, the things that you need to be able to clean a wound or do something like that. So just go out there today when you get a chance and search on FEMA.gov and search on EFFAK, Emergency Financial First Aid Kit, and you'll get loads of information. So remember our key takeaway for this section. You want to save time by doing things in advance. You want to save money by setting up your direct deposits and benefits online. And you want to save stress by doing both things. When or if a disaster strikes, you want to be financially prepared. So, road to recovery. So let's say, unfortunately, there's a major disaster, a presidentially declared one, and now you've gone through a lot. You're in the recovery phase. So you're recovering financially from the major disaster. Here's some things you need to know. That we have to develop an initial plan to recover from the disaster. And that initial plan is all about our finances. And you see here, the most important thing it communicates on the slide is to watch out for those scams. One way you can pretty much rest assured you're dealing with a scammer is if they call you. If they call you, 99.9% of the time, it's a scam. Typically, when we're in a disaster situation of some sort, we are the ones to reach out to say, here is the need. So that'll help you a lot in weeding out people you shouldn't be talking to. Steps to financial recovery: small groups, property, home, income, bills, protecting your money. So property is other than the home. That's the things that are in the home and your car or cars. Then you have your home. Then you're focused on your income and your job. The next thing you're focused on are your bills and expenses. And then the last thing is holding on to your money. So we're going to take small steps. So let's start with property. And remember, this is other than a home. We're looking at your documents and things like that. So you need to be able to assess and document the damage. You want to take pictures of the disaster. You want to contact your insurance provider immediately after you've taken those pictures. You want to find a safe place to store your cash and valuables, because remember, you already had them set in one place, but now you're in a disaster. You got to move them. You want to arrange for alternative transportation. This is a big one. There's some people that don't live in a metropolitan area. You may have lost your car in the disaster. We've seen that oftentimes in like Oklahoma, places out west, where people have not just lost damage to their home, but also their cars were crushed or what have you, or in the fires, the Oregon fires and the fires in California. So you need to be thoughtful about, okay, if I've got to go in a New York minute or in a flash, how can I get there if I don't have my car. Repair and replace or borrow assistive technology you use that was damaged. So you want to be sure that maybe you have some little backup to probably, I'm going to say probably maybe your phone or a second phone somewhere that you can grab, or some other technology tool that will help you be able to communicate with others. Anybody have any ideas? Because this one is outside of, my area of purview, the technology space. But anybody have any ideas of backups that they might be able to use?
Me personally, I have two phones. Like my other phone got messed up, and I have a really good cheap plan where
Good,
I can add another line, and I would have been without my contacts, but praise God that I had another phone and
good.
I was able to have access to my information. So that's my plan. It rose my bill like only like $30, but Metro is really good because I don't want to pay like $150 for Verizon. I rather
Oh,
have like two affordable phones.
good. Good
Yeah.
for you. That's good. I appreciate that. Okay. So others may want to try the method that John C uses, where she has an alternate phone in the event there's an emergency. I see something blinking. So five more. I don't know if anybody has another question or response. Okay, let's move on. So if you
What type of
own,
cash should we have on hand in case of an emergency?
what was that?
What amount of
Um,
cash should we have on hand in case of an emergency?
Yes, yes. I always say you should have, and I was speaking about that earlier, that you definitely want to have that cash on hand in case of emergency. Because as I said, during September the 11th, there was a time, a couple of days, where we couldn't access the banking institutions at through the machines. So you should always, and as a matter of fact, I mentioned even when we came out for the pandemic, when the federal government announced that we were in the pandemic and they wanted people to go home who were federal workers and others who were in business that could go home. The first thing I did before I left my job was I went to my credit union and got cash out in case of an emergency. And I got a little bit of amount for us to be able to buy food and things like that in the event something happened. So yes, you're absolutely right.
So I suggest, usually what I suggest is anywhere between 300 to 500, depending on your spending,
Yes, ma'am.
monthly or weekly spending. Uh, if you don't have that much, at least $100, because
Yeah.
if you need to put gas in your car and you need to buy a little bit of food, $100 is going to give you maybe a week's worth of expenses. So you want to look at maybe what you spend month on a weekly basis, and I would times that by maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Agree. Very good. Yes, that's a very, very good recommendation, and I support that. Miss Juanita is spot on. And on
And
this slide,
one other
go ahead.
one other device you may want to consider is a laptop, because you do have the ability to make phone calls through it if you want, or the Zoom, or connect
Mhm.
to different at different places where you go, and you can keep all your information on there as well, and just keep a smaller version of a laptop if you need to.
That's a good point. And also, I could be wrong, but I thought that, oh, and I'm skipping on the store here, Best Buy. I thought that I saw like some phones that were like an emergency phone that people could buy. So I'm gonna have to look into that because I thought I've seen that before. Um, but yeah, we have to prepare. So anything that you can do to prepare is just going to make it a little easier for you and it'll ratchet down the angst and anxiety. You know, if you feel like I have some things in place and I'm ready to go. Um, I see the little piece lightening up, and I don't know if that's people wanting to speak or not, but
That's just someone saying that it's really, this is so fitting and needed an education on, especially during times like this. And it says knowledge and preparation is key. And thank you for keeping us aware.
wonderful, wonderful. Good, good. That's good to know. So if you own a home, this is a big one, and it's one that I'm very close to because in my previous job, as soon as there was mention of a major or a potential disaster, I had to get into work early because I would be working with public affairs and I'd be working with my boss to put policy out so that people wouldn't lose their homes. And this was for those who had FHA loans, which are federal government loans through HUD. And so, one of the things I always tell people, you have to continue to make your housing payments. But if you can't, because it's an emergency situation, the mortgage companies that lend us money, they have guidance uh, dictating what they should do to help you. And recently, a cousin just asked me this the other day, and she says, "Well, what happens? What do they do?" I said, "They will tack your arrearages, which are your late payments or the payments that you can't make because you're in an emergency situation, along with everyone else in your jurisdiction. They will tack those mortgage payments on the back end of your loan." Many of you may have heard about this during the economic crisis we had around circa 2006 or so. That's what they did to get people back on their feet, because most of us don't have that kind of money that we can just give them a big amount of 4 or 5 missed payments. And so they tack it on the back end so that, you know, we can continue to pay our payments when we get back on our feet, but we're not having to worry about that large amount that we missed. And so that is true for mortgage companies. When it comes to landlords, it gets a little tricky. You guys are probably hearing in the news today that a number of landlords were doing what the mortgage companies were doing, and that's giving people a pass during the pandemic, you know, from having to pay their rent. But although the mortgage companies are still working with families in that space, a number of the landlords are not. And I don't think it's because they don't care. I think it's because financially they might not absolutely be able to cover the rents that they're missing. So, anybody experiencing issues with the landlord, or what are you hearing out there? I'm not in that space. I'm in the mortgage lender space, but anybody's landlord not cooperating or was cooperating, changed their mind.
Landlords are a very special breed. So they tend to, they have their own payments, their home payments that they have to make as well. And so
Right,
it is very difficult for our clients to make those payments when they have no income coming in. Fortunately, we're able to assist under the Section 8 program for the assistance, but for those that are not getting a rental assistance, landlords are not taking partial payments. So,
right,
because they set a precedent. So, uh, right now, with people not having income, they can't make the full rental payment of $2,000, $3,000 a month, and landlords aren't
right.
letting them take the pay portions of it. So what's happening is you're creating a debt that they cannot.
They'll never be able to get out of.
Right, and
But-
eventually when the moratorium goes away, they'll probably be evicted.
Right. And I was just getting ready to ask you that because that was the conversation that was what led the conversation between my cousin and me the other day. And she says, but what about those people that, you know, what can the landlord evict? And I said, if the state or the local jurisdiction has a mandate that they cannot evict, obviously they can't. I said, but the issue, at least with a little bit I'm seeing in the news, is everybody's doing something differently, right? So that's why I was questioning what you guys were experiencing. So
I mean,
yes.
me personally, the landlord changed. So the new manager doesn't know me, but I always pay my rent on time. So
That's
I don't know.
good. There's some people who aren't able to, and it's not their fault because they're not working, right? And there've been long periods without work. But again, if you follow the local news in your area, they will speak to whether or not that moratorium Ms. Juanita referenced, the moratorium on not being able to evict someone or put them on the street as a result of not paying their rent. That would be probably, like I said, your mayor or governor or whatever making those decisions. And so they would be different around the country. So also remember, if you get in a situation, you want to assess and document damage. If you own a home, you need to do that because you will have homeowners insurance and they will be looking for that. It'll make it easier for you to get your money back quickly. The first thing you got to do is contact that insurance provider, however. And likewise, if you don't own a home and you have an apartment, you want to do the same thing. You want to contact your landlord immediately about any damage. If you rent, and take pictures so they can see that it was damaged as a result of the disaster and not something that you did. And also, I would say this is a good one. Reach out to a HUD certified housing counseling agency. And all you need to do is go online and type in what we refer to as HUD approved housing counseling agency. You know, those people are not scammers. If it has HUD approved in front of it, housing counseling agency, you know they are not scammers. They are people who we support, and they will help you as well. Because a lot of times they will know more about the funds that are coming to FEMA to help people get back on their feet, and the funds that are going from FEMA to the states. So you want to reach out to one of them in your area and they can help. So income job, yes. So we all get income from our jobs that we work. The first thing we got to do, if we're in an area where a specific area where there is a major disaster, you need to reach out and let that employer know. In our situation in Maryland, there was a time where we had ice storms, and the ice storms may not have affected everybody, but they affected certain areas. One time, ice storm was so bad, my husband couldn't leave the base that he worked on to come home. So because the state police had blocked off the interstate, because a particular interstate, because it was just ice, it was frozen. So you want to contact your employer, let your employer know what's going on. They may be in an area that they don't have the same issue that you have. Contact your benefits providers. Those are, let's say you get money for your child as a result of a parent paying monthly benefits to a child, you want to contact that provider, make sure that money is still going to go into your account. You want to keep track of any work days that you lose. This is important because if you have insurance, you may be able to get some of that money back through the insurer. Care for your service animal. If you have a designated service animal as a result of some health related issue, you want to focus in on that. And as we mentioned earlier, care for repair assistive technology. So that's Jonesy referenced, she had a second phone. And I think somebody else mentioned something about a tablet or something else that they used as a backup.
Somebody also mentioned walkie-talkies.
Oh, those are wonderful. And maybe, yeah, those are wonderful. That's a very, very good idea.
Yeah,
And
Amazon.
And you can find those probably at Walmart as well. You also want to contact your disability insurance provider. We talked a little earlier, some of you may work in jobs where you have disability or opportunity to get a disability plan. So let's say if you broke your leg and you can't get into work for 2 months, the insurance company will cover you. Explore your public benefits. If you see any information out there, sometimes you'll get things in the mail. Be very, very careful because there are people that pawn off these quote unquote benefits for you in a disaster. And then there's so many waivers where you get to that place, that benefit doesn't work. But Miss Juanita can probably help you sift through those if you get anything like that. Contact your life insurance providers. Make sure that your policy is up to date. You should do that annually anyway. And always have the contact information for your schools, whether it be for your education or your child's education, because a lot of times the schools have financial aid offices, whether they be universities or even some high schoolers or others. People donate money. So you want to make sure that everyone understands your plight and what you're up against, because if something comes through in the way of benefits or money for you as a result of being in a disaster, you want to be notified. Bills and expenses. You want to continue paying your bills. You, as Ms. Juanita mentioned, you might be able to continue doing that if you have enough in your emergency savings account. If you don't, you want to try to pay those bills that are necessities. So if it's the summer and it's 99 degrees, you want to pay the electric bill so you can, you don't want to get sick. If it's a water bill, you have to pay that. Usually during times like these, the utilities give us a break. So normally you can expect in a presidentially declared major disaster that the utilities will give us a break for a couple of months. But if you can, try to make sure you have some emergency savings on hand, because you don't want to deal with not being able to have water or not being able to have lights because you can't pay your bill. Contact the post office if you need to. Maybe you have mail going to them. Also contact your financial institutions. Make sure that everything is okay. You want to contact your creditors. You want to keep records of what you spend and what you spent. And you want to access assistance programs. And I've already given you some tidbits about how to do that. Those housing counselors are really good at keeping up with that, especially the HUD approved ones. So these things, folks, are the things. And remember, you're in recovery now. So you want to start back doing the things slowly that you were doing prior to that major disaster. That's why we're talking about continuing to pay your bills, sort of try to pick up where you left off, pay what you can, contact your financial institutions, see where they stand now that you're trying to get back to full recovery. Talk to your creditors where you missed a payment somewhere along that credit line because you just couldn't. Now you're getting back up and running, and they will take those things into consideration. Keep records of what you spend, and also I would say keep records of what you spent as well, and try to access any assistance programs. As I mentioned earlier, and you guys should be on the lookout for this, when there is a presidentially declared major disaster, money is coming that way. And so coming your way at some point. So you want to make sure that you get some benefit from that and some assistance as well, because that's why we pay into taxes. Protecting your money, get and review your credit reports. This is a major one. You want to get and you want to review your credit report because you want to see if there was any impact of you missing those payments. And if it's on that credit report, you want to go back to those credit reporting agencies. Remember, there are three: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. You want to tell them, I need a notation there that I was only behind as a result of a disaster. And you can cite the disaster and the date, and that will help you. You want to contact your financial institutions as you get back on your feet and make sure you still have a good relationship with them. You want to contact the Department of Motor Vehicles. Make sure you don't have any outstanding tickets or anything that has to be paid. If your motor vehicle was damaged and totally destroyed, you need to let the DMV know, the Department of Motor Vehicles, know that. So they're not looking for you to renew anything, or they're not going to charge you for not renewing something as a result of you losing a vehicle. Find a safe place for your financial information, for your cash and your other valuables. You can do this now while you're thinking straight, because when we get in a disaster situation like the pandemic, we were all afraid. Do it now in case something else comes up. And always say, they say contact the post office. This is in case you want to change your mail situation. Next slide. Be proactive. You want to be the one to contact the company. Don't wait for them to contact you. We know who we owe. Then, if needed, contact their regulatory agency. So if it's, let's say it's a banking institution, the regulatory agency is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So you can go online, put in that name of the company and say, who is their regulatory agency? And they can help you. Consider filing a complaint with state regulators or state attorney general's office. Now, this is important, so you want to make sure you hold on to this slide. I ran in a situation where I had an accident, and it was a car accident. I had been paying my insurance payment, my husband and I, for years. And when he had this accident and he totaled the car, when I got my subsequent monthly bill for the car insurance company, they significantly increased our monthly payment amount. And I got upset and I called and I said, I think this is unfair. We don't have accidents every day. This wasn't even his fault. And I don't think our car insurance should go up. And they said, well, they thought differently. So my question was, who is your regulatory agency? And they provided me, for my state, the commissioner on insurance. And I wrote a letter explaining to them that I had this policy for X number of years. I did a back of the envelope calculation of how much I think I paid them over all of those years. And this one accident, nobody was hurt, but the car was totaled. But this one accident, they went up to me on for a hefty amount. And that state regulator wrote back a letter to the car insurance company and agreed with me. And so they had to take my payment back down to what it originally was. So it's important for you to know regulatory agencies. And if you ask, people must provide them to you. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're working with especially these, especially the insurance companies, they can get a little tricky. So here's a step for you. You can do this on your own. I'm going to send the participant guide, as I said, to Ms. Juanita, and you can have this. Hopefully you don't need any of this. Hopefully none of us will end up in a major disaster situation. But given everything we're hearing from the weather people, we're experiencing around the country more disasters than we've ever experienced. So you want to prepare yourself. Do yourself a favor and prepare yourself while you are in a good space. Get help. So if there is a disaster, you want to go to disasterassistance.gov. If you don't, you're not going to remember all of this stuff, but I would encourage you to file this particular PowerPoint deck away so you have it, and put it in something that is in plastic, so that no water or anything will get to it, but you have some references and things you can go back to. You want to get help through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, disaster recovery centers. Typically, you're going to find, if that happens, you're going to find FEMA will have people on my team. I'm on the disaster team. They will be at a local site with FEMA representatives, trying to help people recover, particularly in the housing space, because we want everyone to be able to get back into a place where they can, have sleep on their head and get a good night's rest, even though it's been a disaster. And then also locally organized disaster relief and recovery meetings. You will see those as you're watching the news each day. If you happen to be in a major disaster, they will have that information about disaster relief and recovery meetings and entities able to assist you. Other financial recovery resources, again, you want to start with that. This is disasterassistance.gov. FEMA's individuals and household programs. Small Business Administration, you can count on them. They're there. Low interest, long-term disaster loans are sometimes depending on if that disaster is really, really bad. I can't remember the one. Miss Juanita, I don't know if you can remember. I think it may have been Puerto Rico, one of the worst ones.
Yes.
I think they had long-term disaster loans available through SBA to help people get back on their feet. Okay. So yeah, so you want to reach out to SBA, the Small Business Administration. The Department of Agriculture has disaster loans, and but those are probably likely for maybe people who parents may own a farm or something like that, and they can't, they've destroyed their crop or something in that space. The Department of HUD, I mentioned the approved housing counseling agencies, they can help you as well. And then there's a home preservation hotline that can also help. So let's go to the next slide. Watch out for those scammers. Not everyone who offers help is a legitimate source. I don't know, this particular slide is messed up, but that's what they're saying. It's a legitimate, not everyone who offers help is a legitimate source of help. Be on the lookout for scams. Protect yourself by being cautious, and be selective when you get help or when you have or accept help. Be selective when you have or accept help. I'm going to say try to stick to those agencies that Ms. Juanita and I have been talking about that are listed in this document, and you should be safe. To avoid scams, do a check reference. Push the people. If something doesn't make sense to you or you feel some kind of way, don't do it. Trust your gut. Ask to see state or local permits. That's a great one. A great one. During the financial crisis, the housing crisis, did you know there were entities setting up mortgage companies without any permits? We learned that it was a hot mess and they were just giving everybody loans. We learned that. So now every mortgage company has to have a permit and a ID number associated with it. So ask to see state or local permits if somebody's offering something to you. Don't pay any money in full upfront for anything. Because right then, if somebody's asking you and they know you're a disaster victim and they've called you, quote unquote, to help you, they know you don't likely have money because you're stressed, right? So don't give out any money. Keep receipts. Get them from the people if you are purchasing something. I would say keep your receipts because there could be a program that hasn't been established at a particular point in time, but you may have had to spend extra money as a result of the disaster. That insurance company might cover something. So if you go to Lowe's and you got to buy something extra for the house because something was broken or damaged and you're trying to protect the home, keep your receipts. You may be able to file that as a part of your insurance claim. And do not pay for services that should be free. This is another big one. During that major disaster, the last one in Puerto Rico, I had to reach out to the Office of Public Affairs to put information out in Spanish to people who were being scammed and paying for services that were free. So keep those things in mind. More tips to avoid scams. Research the organization. We got the internet now. People can't trick us as easily as they used to be able to. If that organization doesn't sound familiar, it's not the Red Cross, something like that. You don't trust them. Protect your information, monitor those credit reports, and read the scam alerts and report scams in the news, paper, and watch the news each evening if you're in a major disaster, because they will offer information to you in your specific jurisdiction. Here's another exercise on page 15. This is trying to spot red flags. You can do this on your own when you get the guide. You want to adjust your financial picture after the disaster. So it's necessary for you to take time to grieve and to get used to your new reality. That's going to take us some time. You want to review and adjust your spending and saving plan because you've been through the disaster and now your saving and spending plan has to be updated because you've used money in ways that you hadn't intended before. Contact your lenders, contact your financial institutions, get and review those credit reports, and set new goals and make plans to reach those new goals as you're starting to get back on your feet. And I'm going to add another one. Give yourself time, take a pause, think about that disaster and the things that you wished you had had in place that you didn't, and then start using that as the goal that you're going to focus on. Okay. So the key takeaway is to develop that initial plan to recover financially from a disaster, and cuidado, watch out for scams. So this was our lesson today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's not something that we want to think about, but if we're prepared, it will help us in the long run. So Ms. Juanita, I'll turn it back over to you. And if anybody has questions, I'm available to help them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ivory. This was a wonderful class, really, really informative. I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have a recruitment today at 2. Amazon is hiring folks. We sent out the recruitment information, and we're also having Habitat for Humanity, which is a wonderful homeownership program with zero interest on their loans, talking tomorrow at 11 and giving us information on their programs for homeownership. So those are some of the workshops. There are no questions that I've seen here. We are going to go ahead and end this workshop today. I will send everyone that was on this meeting today a copy of this recording. So with no further ado, you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you at 2. Bye.
All righty. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Juanita. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ivory. Great job as always. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. You're welcome. You all are welcome.